Hey everybody, this is Loree. Played Michael Myers in Halloween Resurrection, and you're listening to the Movie Raid Show.
It's time for the movie raid, and tonight's victim is Stuntman Loree, that has played in Halloween Resurrection, 2019 Child's Play, Time Cop, so many others. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Do we have any cons or any other events or anything that you're going on, or are you just traveling the statesides and just enjoying the weather?
I've been doing a bunch of conventions out east, and off to Wisconsin this weekend, and then the next weekend I'm not sure where I am, but then after that I'm in Memphis and in Savannah, Georgia, and then we end up in Chicago at the end of November.
Any film projects or anything like that, or is this basically what you're doing currently right now, and until you figure out what else is next?
This is what I'm doing. I'm 65 and I've got a really bad back. I just saw the surgeon yesterday. I've got 2 hips that need surgery, but because I gained a ton of weight during the pandemic, the surgeon's telling me I got to lose a shit ton of weight before anybody will operate on me, and I really want to get this done because both of my hips are down to the bone with arthritis and cysts and no cartilage. So I can't move very well right now, and I'm kind of almost somewhat disabled. So, like I said, I'm a little heavy for some of the seats, but I make new friends at every show, and I get to see places I've never been, and it's awesome.
That's great, man, and I hope you get what you need to get better for yourself.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I mean, having such an extensive catalog as a stunt person, can the job actually reflect based not just on the pay, but also on the genre? Do you feel like it's, despite the having X amount of stunts in that movie, do you think it's based on the genre, and it's kind of like it's a right time to do this, you might get more money, but then it kind of fluctuates to depending on what kind of project it is?
I think it definitely fluctuates to the project and the genre, and every show is a whole new ballgame.
How has that always been that for you, from even extensive? I mean, was that a little bit easier for you? Like, for example, Halloween Resurrection. There's a lot of things going on, but it seems like the pay would probably be better, and it seemed like it was a little bit more in your ball game, so to speak.
Well, if you're asking if Resurrection was more or less difficult than my other projects, I would tell you that Resurrection was pretty simple. On action, you just go walk over there and stab that person. Resurrection, getting kicked through the window by Busta Rhymes was tricky because I had very little. It was a very narrow window, and I kept hitting the side of the frame on the rehearsals. But when we actually first take, I did manage to get through the window, and then rolling off the roof and hanging in the harness. They were difficult in that they took a certain amount of athleticism, is what I'll say.
Every gig gets more risky by obviously putting your body on the line and through harm's way to an extent. Do you feel that in some cases that it can be necessary for stunt men and stunt women should negotiate on their either their job contract as if they were an actual actor to have certain benefits, to have at least possibly have like some kind of health coverage or anything like that when they do these kind of stunts, dangerous stunts for that?
Well, the coverage is whatever the union contracts call for, and as far as pay goes, we have, you have your hour rate, you have your overtime rate, but then you have what they call the stunt adjustment, and that is if you fall over in a chair, they give you an extra $100. If you fall off of a building 10 stories, they give you an extra $10,000. As far as benefits go, that's completely different. It's got nothing to do with the stunt. It's whatever your union provides.
And how often do stunt people, like, what's the most coverage as far as pay goes? Do you think a lot of stunt people go for the biggest stunt to get that extra pay or that big payout, or do you think that is kind of like point of no return, that you shouldn't do that even though that's offered there?
Well, you don't get to pick and choose your own stunts. The stunt coordinators are the ones that call you, and you can say yes or no. And if you're a highly skilled person with comfortable with dangerous situations, I guess you would work more. But you don't get to cherry pick. It's very bad juju to turn down a stunt. You have to be honest about your skill level. But I suppose if people hear of a certain stunt coming up. But yeah, well, no, because the stunt coordinator is the one who reads the script with the production meetings, and he's the one that knows what needs and who he needs. And so stunt people aren't usually made privy to certain gags before they get contracted. So it's the coordinator that does all that.
Would you say it's also a gamble, even today's films, that even being a stunt person, that it's kind of like a balance between you might get this job, you might not get this job, despite how skillful you really are? Do you think success rate for a stunt person is kind of lower this type of standards, or do you think it's actually benefit over the course of the years? It'll all depend on genre as well, like having, let's say, horror is always a big thing, and you got action, that's always a big thing as far as stunts, but can it also be difficult as far as proving as a stunt person in either one of these genres? Now, granted, like let's say indie films that you might get a good check out of as well, but then once you get a more substantial studio, do you think that that's also heavily upon trying to get established in either of these genres?
No, I think it just all comes down to whoever your audience is. It comes to, some people like action, some people like horror, some people like live action. I don't know if that comes down to the stunt performer's whimsy. It's wherever your skill set is, and that's where you tend to. That's where and then of course it comes down to also to who you know, to your nepotism, and that kind of determines your career that way.
And stunt men and stunt women are used to stunt work specifically, but when they have to actually play a character and also a combination doing the stunts, and how do you coordinate the two between character and the physical performance? Like, do you have to think differently between performing a character and having to figure out how to do the stunt at the same time?
Well, stunt people don't very often play a character worry too much about it. Usually, as a stunt person, you're either an ND character who's just a face in the crowd, or you're the stunt double who is only going to be on the screen for a few seconds to do a stunt, wherein it looks like it's the actor that's doing it. So it is stunting and performing is performing. There is a category called stunt actor, but they're the security guard that has two lines and then gets shot and falls down the stairs. There's not a whole lot of prep around the acting. It's as long as you're athletic enough and experienced enough to know how to take the squib hit and to do the stair fall, then you might be the one that gets the job.
Now, can that also vary on pay too if you were to be in that category? Let's say you have more jobs in that category. Does the pay change on that, or does it basically it's the same pay underneath that kind of union or whatever type of company that you're attached to under that job or contract?
Only affected by the adjustment. You go to set as a stunt person, you get paid 8 hours for this much. If you're there for 12 hours, you get paid this much. If you, like I said, if you do a big gag, you get a significant amount of more pay. And if it's not that big a gag, you just go home with your 8 or 10 or 12 hour a day pay.
And what's the most maximum hours that you, as a stunt person, is allowed? And can that also affect on pay too? Is there such thing as like they can't pay you this amount? They have a specific limit on that.
I do not. That's a good question. I honestly don't know. I have not been on. Buddy, I have not worked since 2009. I've been worked steady since 2009. I basically went into semi-retirement in 2009. But I'll tell you that my longest day on set was on a TV series called Lost in Space, and I was there for 20 hours. But I know people that have gone past 24 hours. But as far as union rules, I know they have very strict rules around minors, kids, but I don't know for adults if there's a maximum that you're allowed to work.
Obviously, age is going to catch up to everybody, but like, let's say you are still capable of doing certain things as stunt-wise. Does that also deplete play because, let's say you have some disability, but you're still able to do, let's say, break through a door or whatever? Can you still get paid like that, or is that just means that, well, you're out of the game, you're only going to get whatever for appearance or coordinating?
If you get hired, you get paid. But they're not going to hire me to do a big, long, drawn-out fight scene or a big high fall. I will still go to work when they need someone to be a passenger in a vehicle, for example, or do something as simple as play a cop I was working on The Flash a few years ago, and they had the camera roll into the cop shop, and the camera's point of view was intended to be the point of view of this noxious gas, and then we all got knocked out, so we had to faint down onto the floor, and that was the big stunt, and the rest of the time I was just sitting against the wall handcuffed. So those kind of jobs I can still do, but you know, the stuff, the young man's game, you know, but stuff where you're hitting the ground hard for take after take after take, that stuff I'll never do again, you see. And but I also spent on a show, I was passenger along with 24 other stunt people on a bus for 3 days. So we have what we call gravy days, where they get back on your body, and then you have days that are, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, they're a 10 because you're in danger, and also they require a great deal of skill, and also the potential for injury is much, much higher. So, and that's, of course, when the adjustment comes into play. But even though I'm on disability, old and fat, I can still do, when they need a face in the crowd to drop debris on, for example, you're all looking up at, you know, King Kong or whatever, and they drop burning debris onto you. That's a stunt, because there is, you know, an element of danger, but that's the kind of stuff I can still do.
Well, when it comes to coordinating, you did some coordinating as well as far as the stunt work. Is there a lucrative career specifically just going forward only that, let's say that you're not completely capable of doing regular stunts, but if you can coordinate, is there an actual future for that, or is that just another, well, if you're good enough, we put you there and then you direct that, and then that's it, and you move on to the next, just like any other job?
Oh no, there's people that get to a certain age where all they want to do is be the coordinator. It's a lot more work, a lot more hours, a lot less pay because you're not on camera. But no, I mean, some people do both, and some people get into coordinating sooner than they should, so they didn't really cut their teeth and pay their dues as stunt people. So they're not. Those are pretends to be dangerous people because they don't appreciate what the stunt person is going through as a performer, because they don't know, they didn't hit the ground enough. But you know, coordinating is one thing and performance is completely different. But the coordinator is the boss. Coordinator is the one that is in charge of all the safety with all the physical action on it, and he's the one that does the hiring and the firing.
Is this some kind of a career that, you know, this is some kind of a part-time for you in your situation, or do you feel like, you know, this is another pass the torch to somebody else that, you know, is more fit and more directive and able to, you know, because you have a lot of mobility from flying one place to another? No,
I mean, if I can get to the job and I can do the job, and it's like I said, a gravy day, I'll do it. I miss being on set. I miss my friends, and if I can go to work, I'm going to work. But you know, again, like I said, if it's something that requires a young man's skill and resilience, then I'm not doing it. But if it's something I can do, then I'm absolutely going to do it.
What would you consider, as a stunt person, what would you consider that you've personally seen that other younger stunt people, or at least that has a couple of films underneath their belt, that is a more of a reckless mistake, and then they automatically think that this is how they are going to make their money, even though they get paid on it? What would you consider a reckless mistake and an ongoing mistake in today's stunting that you've personally seen in other films?
Well, a big mistake would be to lie about your skill sets. I mean, I've seen, you know, accidents and mistakes, but, you know, nothing is not always avoidable because you don't understand. The only mistake I can honestly say is people who are padding their resume and lying about what they can do and not do, because you convince a coordinator you can do something and you go to set and you can't do it, your name's going to get around as someone who's full of shit, and you're not going to work ever again.
Are there more restrictions for a stunt person because of that, or have they kind of fixed that kind of situation, or is that always an ongoing thing regardless of that, and they just kind of shrug it off, and then if it happens, well, either A, they get penalized, or if they don't get penalized? Was there any more restrictions like that, or any other rules that just kind of recently applied to stunt people because of these kind of things that go on?
There weren't, you know, restrictions place when I was working, but that, like I said, I'm not sure what the atmosphere is today. I don't think they're a lot safer today than they used to be.
What was restricted to you as a stunt person, and what was also limited to, not because of ability or anything like that, but was the union or other company, did they restrict you specifically, even if, let's say, you wanted to do it anyway in your time as far as stunting goes? And as far as any studios, was there ever any kind of creativity that you wanted to do in a specific stunt, or you just simply just do the job and then that was pretty much it throughout every kind of thing?
Yeah, the answer to the question is no.
Do you feel like when, like, let's say a big budget studio, when the film on the work, does in some occasions, do you feel that, sometimes it can be less pay despite the work of it received in compared to, let's say, a mediocre budget film that you've already been hired and already done?
No, the pay is set by the union. Of course, there's certain gags that you do that you think you could have and should have gotten more adjustment for, but that's always, if you're smart, you'll have discussed that with your coordinator beforehand, because I always had a pretty good idea what I was going to be doing. You always want to know what the gag is before you go to work, but you also, and from what they tell you, you can pretty much guess in your head what the adjustment's going to be. So I always knew what the stuff was going to be, and I always had a pretty accurate idea what the pay was going to be,
In your time that, where you've left off, even though you're out of the loop, but do you feel that the system, as far as stunting goes, as far as what you see, do you think, because all the technology that we have, do you feel like it's lessening for stunt people, or do you feel like there's still always a future for that, or do you feel it stayed the same even when you left off from stunting?
With CGI and AI, there's going to be less need for stunt people and eventually actors too over the next 5 or 10 years, because computers are taking over the film industry. I saw a movie just recently where a character in the movie did a stair fall, and it was all computerized. They didn't hire a stunt double and throw somebody down the stairs. They did it with a computer, and it looked like absolute shit, but in 5 years from now, that's going to be a different story.
Do you feel like it's kind of almost like an insult to stunt people? I mean, they actually physically did this, and they actually worked hard on doing this and potentially almost killing themselves for that, but then when you see this on the screen, on CGI or AI or whatever it is, that, well, yeah, it looks like I wasn't even there at all.
No, I wouldn't say it's an insult. It is just the way of the world. Everything's being automated. Man, and it's a shame, because a lot of people who dedicated themselves to stunt skills are going to work less and less, and eventually you're going to have to be ridiculously connected in order to get any stunt work, because it's all going to be. I really think it's all going to come down to nepotism, because there's going to be so few jobs available. Everyone's going to try and keep them to themselves and to their friends, within their own little circle. So,
fan question, and this is by Hane Miller. He says, are you expected to play Michael Myers in a sequel or more?
Am I expected? No.
But let's say if you were in the next Halloween sequel, like, what would you want to actually do as far as your own stunts? Let's say you had the ability and they gave you that creative freedom to do what you want specifically. What would you actually want to do as this iconic character?
I want to do whatever the script said, and like I said, go from here to there and kill the person and collect my paycheck.
Go ahead and plug in any websites or anything that you'd like to promote, or even giving advice that you would care to give to others.
Live long and prosper. I'm too old for technological advice. I don't even understand technology myself, man. My advice to anybody that is thinking they want to be a stunt performer is I would never discourage anybody, but just know that in another 10 years from now, by the time you have this, for someone starting out today, by the time you have the skills to be a steady working stunt person, I can't promise you there's going to be a stunt category in filmmaking.
And there you have it, everybody. That is Brad Loree.
Thanks so much, man. Have an awesome day.